planning and preparation for today's event. We want to let you know that today is to provide updates for the death investigation involving Elijah McLean, which occurred on August 24th of 2019. The officer-involved shooting involving Andrew Huff, which occurred on October 10th of 2019, and the officer-involved shooting at 9121 East 14th Avenue, which occurred October 20th of 2019. In attendance will be Aurora Police Deputy Chief Paul O'Keefe, that is spelled O''K''EE'Fe. Assistant DA to the 18th Judicial District, Matt Mailaro, spelled Mallaro, and Major Crimes Homicide Unit Sergeant Matt Files, spelled Fyles. Your media packets that you should have should provide many answers about the integration process, state legislation, the case we're going to talk about, and any booking photos if we have them available. If you did not get a packet, please let us know, and we'll make sure you get one before you leave. And also, we ask that you please hold any and all questions until we're done with the updates. Chief.
Good morning. Thanks for being here. As was noted, I'm Deputy Chief Paul O'Keefe. I think the purpose of today's discussion is to provide an update to cases that have been in the media and have garnered some amount of attention. We want to make sure that the community at large knows we haven't forgotten about any of these cases. It's not a matter of not pursuing any work associated with them. It's really more a matter of working through the process associated with them. So this is just an opportunity to kind of tell you where we are in that process. I want to reiterate that Chief Metz has been involved in developing this particular event, and he would be here doing it himself if in fact he was in the state. So the first one I want to discuss is the Elijah McLean case. This is obviously, it's a horrible tragedy. It's a horrible tragedy for the McLean family. It's a horrible tragedy for the community at large, and it's also a horrible tragedy for the officers that are involved in this. Recognizing the gravity of this particular case, even though it doesn't meet the requirements of the Senate Bill 219 regarding multi-jurisdictional investigations, the chief did order that we follow that same process. Again, recognizing the gravity of the death of this young man, we wanted to ensure that there was a full, thorough, and as transparent as possible investigation into that case. The investigation is still active. It is still ongoing. We are still waiting for the final coroner's report to come out. Once that coroner's report does come out, that will be added to the case file itself, and that case file will be presented in whole to the District Attorney's Office for the 17th Judicial District. We did give the family an opportunity to view that video. They have viewed that video. So we at least had the opportunity to provide some more information to the family about that case. The next case I'd like to talk about is the case at 1570 South Bahama. This was on October 10th of this year. This is a case where there's actually two cases associated with this. There's an assault investigation, which is the reason that the officers were responding to that location in the first place, and then there's an officer-involved shooting investigation that is separate and distinct from the assault investigation. The affidavit that was made available is strictly related to the assault investigation. There is no affidavit available for the officer-involved shooting investigation. That has not been presented to the District Attorney's Office yet. The background for that case is we received a call from a gentleman who was assaulted at 1570 South Bahama. He received injuries that required him to go to the hospital. After his release from the hospital, he called us to go out there. He wanted first to try and gather up some property, but also to file that report. As the officers approached, they saw a gentleman, later identified as Andrew Huff, 22-year-old white male, leave from the driveway in front of the house to inside the house. As officers approached the front door, they could see Mr. Huff through a very large picture window. The officer recognized that Mr. Huff was looking directly at her as she approached the door. Mr. Huff disappeared for some period of time and then returned carrying what appeared to be some sort of long gun, moving towards the front door. At that time, an officer who had taken up a separate position to watch inside the window observed that threat moving towards the front door, and our officer who was getting ready to knock on the front door ordered Mr. Huff to drop the firearm and then fired inside the residence. I don't know if Mr. Huff could hear that. Obviously, the door was closed, the window was closed. However, through our investigation, we are able to say with a pretty high degree of certainty that Mr. Huff knew it was the police who were at the residence at the time that he went and got that long gun. The details of that will come out as far as when the investigation is completed through the district attorney's office, but there is no doubt in my mind that Mr. Huff knew it was the police that were there and went and grabbed that firearm anyway. Mr. Huff was struck one time, was transported to a hospital where he was treated, and he is facing charges related to certainly the assault that occurred earlier in that day, and any additional charges that may come out of the officer-involved shooting aspect of it would yet to be determined. That case was also investigated. I think everybody's pretty familiar with Senate Bill 219, which requires a multi-jurisdictional approach to these types of investigations. That case was obviously investigated under those circumstances as well. The officer who discharged his firearm was hired in June of 2017. That officer remains on administrative leave at this time. All witness officers have been returned to duty. And the last case that I would like to discuss would be the one from October 20th at 9121 East 14th Avenue. Officers responded to that location on a disturbance call. Also, prior to their arrival, we had received a communication from the Denver Police Department that their shot spotter system had detected some sort of gunfire somewhere close to that area. As officers are arriving on scene, they could hear kind of the disturbance going on in the backside of that building. Officers went around to the backside of the building. As at least two people are running away from the building, an officer observes a gentleman with what appears to be a firearm of some sort. He does order that person to drop the weapon. Again, this happens very, very quickly. That officer does discharge his firearm. The suspect who had the firearm went back through a garden level window into an apartment. Shortly after that, that person was helped out of the apartment building and obviously injured. Early in the investigation, there was some confusion whether or not the police had caused that person's injury or somebody else had caused that person's injury. I can tell you today, we believe that it was the officer who caused that person's injury. We did recover a firearm from inside the apartment area, consistent with the description of the firearm that the officer had observed. Again, once that investigation is completed, it will also be turned over to the 18th Judicial District, much like the Bahama Street one, for a complete and thorough review by the District Attorney's Office and for determination of charges there. That officer does remain on administrative leave pending reintegration, and I think your packet has the process for the reintegration in there. Everybody who is involved in these critical incidents goes through that reintegration process to ensure that prior to their return to any kind of duty that they are mentally and physically prepared to do that. With that, I think I will take whatever questions might be available.
You mentioned you want to be as transparent as possible.
Correct.
The Elijah McLean case, Elijah has passed away 2 months ago.
Yes.
What is the harm to your investigation if you release the body camera footage? We've seen Colorado Springs release things within a couple of weeks. Why would you not release this footage?
Okay, we take our direction for release of information pretty much directly from the District Attorney's Office. That is the 17th Judicial District up there, and at their direction, we are not going to release anything that would be prejudicial to any kind of a case prior to their one, authority, and two, we really want them to have the opportunity to review all of that material without having any sort of prejudicial information getting out there.
Can you describe, though, the family, the attorney who got to see that footage, talked about it as torture? They used that word in describing what happened to Elijah McLean. Can you describe your perspective? Is that an accurate description of what happened to Elijah McLean?
It is not.
What is the more accurate description of what happened when police approached him?
I'm not going to get into the details of that case because it does still have to go to the district attorney's office. But I think the term torture is a mischaracterization.
You mentioned it was a horrible tragedy of Elijah McLean. What makes it a horrible tragedy? Is that at fault of the officers, or is it his just overall death?
I think the death of any of our citizens, especially when it comes within the context of a contact with public safety, is tragic. I mean, none of our officers are coming to work at any given day, today or any other day, thinking this is going to be the day that I'm going to get to do something like that. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody looks forward to that. It's a tragedy for everybody that's involved whenever that happens and regardless of the circumstances.
Are you able to say that the procedures that the officers followed were in line with what the department wants them to do?
So that will be reviewed. Once the case has been fully reviewed by the district attorney's office, that case will also go to the Force Review Board for an internal review for the procedures that were taking place during that contact.
And what are the statuses of the officers involved with Elijah McLean?
Those officers have all been returned to duty.
Can you give a perspective on what kind of tactics police use to de-escalate the situation? The attorney also described the footage as that Elijah didn't even have an opportunity to respond. And also, can you clarify, was he wearing earbuds?
Again, details of the case, not going to get into. When it is appropriate to do so, that video will be released, but I'm not going to put out information that hasn't already been put out, again, at the direction of the district attorney's office.
In the case involving Mr. Huff, you said that you're very certain that he knew it was Aurora police
Yes.
that was on his lawn. How do you know that?
Through our investigation, the information that we were able to gather would lead us in that to that conclusion.
Did Aurora police announce themselves as Aurora police before?
They
their
did not
investigation?
announce as the Aurora Police Department. Again, once that case is fully reviewed by the district attorney's office, the specific details of how we believe that to be true will come out. The officer that approached the door, and this has already come out, the officer that approached the door was convinced that as Mr. Huff is looking at her, she's on a lighted porch in full uniform approaching the door to knock as Mr. Huff is looking directly at her. So there is other information that is available that'll come out.
Did he point his shotgun at an officer? Was the gun pointed at an officer?
I think you all have a picture in your packet that shows him approaching the door with the shotgun where our officer is.
And is it pointed at her, though?
It is not pointed at her at that time.
Was it ever?
I don't know.
Reviewing these 3 cases, all of which have happened in the last 2 months, is it a spate of bad luck, or is it a time to review maybe the use of force policies that are?
I think what this is reflective of is a general sense that that officers have more time than they actually have to make what are life and death decisions in a matter of moments. In each of these cases, all of them different, it will come to light as soon as, especially when body cam video gets out, that the amount of time that our folks, and anybody's law enforcement folks have is tiny compared to the opportunity to review it later on in the comfort of an office somewhere. It is our hope that our officers never have to use force. Unfortunately, that's not always the case.
Is there a concern that Aurora police are losing the trust of the people, which could be a reason why we're having this conference today?
Well, I think that it's always a concern that we might lose the trust of the community. We have for many years, I think, had a very, very good relationship with our community. We want to continue to have a very, very good relationship with our community. And this really is kind of an opportunity to let everyone know we haven't forgotten any of these folks. Every one of these cases is very important to everyone here. But we also have to ensure that the investigations that we present to the district attorney's office are complete, they're thorough, they're unbiased, and that we're not leaving information out that needs to be within those reports.
Question about the body cameras. In the Elijah McLean case,
Mhm.
The people who watched the video said 3 of the officers' body cameras were dislodged. I talked to the company that manufactures those. They said it's uncommon for that to happen. So I wondered, how concerned are you that that happened with your officers? And have you filed a complaint with the company, or are you investigating how those became dislodged?
I would tell you it is not uncommon for it to happen. It is a common complaint for us especially in physical altercations, for those to become dislodged. We are looking at ways for the cameras that we currently have to stay on better. But we're also in the process of pursuing a new camera group, new camera company, and certainly one of the requirements is the cameras have to stay on. It doesn't help us when it looks like something that it's not. And in that case, the cameras fell off during the altercation. We want them to stay on, and it would be helpful for us if they stayed on, so.
2 more questions, please.
Can you confirm that ketamine was used on Elijah McLean at this point?
I think that's already been released, so,
I don't know by police.
I'm sorry?
I don't think the department has clarified that.
That'd be an Aurora fire question, not the police.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
And of all 3 of these incidents, what were the experience levels of each of these officers?
It really kind of varies.
Are we talking a year or 2? Or
We're talking a year or 2 in some cases, and several years from lateral officers in other cases. So there was a wide variety of experience. Okay.
Is the guy from the 14th Avenue shooting, is he still alive?
He is. He is expected to survive.
Can we expect to see body camera footage soon?
Those cases have not been presented to the district attorney's office, so we would obviously be having those conversations in concert with the district attorney's
Just
office.
curious, how is it that you're able to release a photograph, a screen grab from a body
Okay,
camera,
that's
not the rest
past
of
our
the
2
body camera?
questions, Ms. Gleehoff, thank you.
But if you'd like to answer, please do,
So,
because
at this
is a
point,
public-
thank you very much, everybody, for being here. We are going to post a link later on to our blog for the YouTube channel of this conference, if you want to review it later on. If you have further questions, please feel free to send us emails, and we'll answer them as best we can, okay? Thank you very much.